The Batman was directed by Matt Reeves and stars Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Paul Dano, and Jeffrey Wright, and I'm very excited to give you guys my review for this movie. If you've seen it, be sure to leave a comment of what you thought about it. As well, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get into this review. In this movie, a sadistic serial killer begins murdering key political figures in Gotham, and Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption and question his family's involvement. So I first saw this movie back earlier in 2022 when it came out in theaters, and I recently rewatched it again and I decided I want to do a review for it, so here I am. And for me, The Batman was easily the best superhero comic book movie to come out in 2022. It was the best by far. It was not a great year for comic book movies. I thought it was great. I think for me it's probably my second favorite Batman film. The Dark Knight's still number one for me, but this movie I thought was fantastic. Matt Reeves did a great job bringing in a new Batman, making him different from all the other iterations of Batman we've gotten on the big screen, and making this still feel fresh and new and different, especially to the comic book genre. Because it's not focused on the big spectacle like a lot of comic book movies are, and even for the Batman movies, this one doesn't have as much action as a lot of the other ones do, which some people may dislike. I was fine with it. This movie definitely focuses more on Batman being a detective, and I thought that was great because the other movies didn't focus on that too much, so it was great getting a different Batman doing different things. Robert Pattinson as Batman, I thought he was great. He's definitely more Batman than Bruce Wayne in this movie, if that makes sense. Like I think for the majority of this movie, he's in his Batman suit, and I thought that was great. His Bruce Wayne I thought was alright too. I think they'll develop more of his Bruce Wayne persona in the future movies because he was mostly Batman in this one, and when he was Bruce Wayne it was usually just at his mansion with Alfred, where he's still pretty much being Batman but just not in the cowl. So, but I thought his iteration of Batman was great. It was different. It still felt like Batman. I like that he's still a little bit of a younger Batman, so he's still figuring himself out. He's still really good at being a detective. Like, he can figure things out before the police officers and other detectives can, but he's still not quite maybe that world's greatest detective. The Riddler's still always a couple steps ahead of him, and so I really like that they did that. He's still smart, still the detective, but not quite fulfilled in what he can be, what Batman is. So I like that they're sort of building him up like that. And as I mentioned, there's not as much action in this movie as there are in some other Batman movies, but when it's there, it's fantastic. The fight scenes were great, the choreography fantastic, and it's always fun just watching Batman beat up a bunch of goons. So there were still some great scenes with Batman fighting for sure, but this movie is definitely more of a noir thriller, murder mystery thriller. It definitely feels a lot more like Seven or Zodiac, which I loved. I liked the feel of this movie. I liked the interpretation of Gotham. It feels like a real place, and it feels like this very corrupt place, like not a safe place to be. I really liked how they brought Gotham to life in this movie, because we've had different versions of Gotham in the other movies. I like this version quite a bit. It feels very real, which was great, and it fit the tone of this movie. It's a very grounded movie. It has parts that are still, you know, not as realistic, but you can buy into it for this movie. Like, there's definitely scenes where it's like, oh right, he would not have survived that. Like when he has his parachute like thing and he sort of crashes a bit, he probably wouldn't survive that in real life, but it was fine. But overall it felt very grounded and realistic, which was really nice, because a lot of these superhero movies aren't, and they can be fun, but there's not as many that are grounded. There are a few, but it's nice to get a really grounded one, a very mature one as well. It's PG-13, but it's a very mature film in my opinion. And Paul Dano as the Riddler I thought was fantastic, completely different from Jim Carrey's version, and he was great. He was great at being, like, when you first see his actual face, he's just this regular guy, which kind of makes him scarier because he's insane, and he pulls it off very well. And there's even parts where you're like, okay, you can understand why he's doing what he's doing beyond just sort of not being mentally there, and you can feel sympathy for him. But I loved his dynamic. I loved his first scene with Batman when he's been captured and have the real first face-to-face conversation. That whole scene was fantastic, and Paul Dano was great in that scene. All the performances in this were great. Jeffrey Wright as Gordon, I thought he was great. I loved his dynamic with Batman. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman was fantastic as well. Andy Serkis as Alfred, he was great. I hope to see more of him in future movies. I feel like they can do some more because of the way he was helping Batman sort of figure certain things out, some of the riddles, stuff like that. I think they can do some more with him, and I'd like to see some more with him. But all the performances were great. Colin Farrell as the Penguin was fantastic. The prosthetics on him were fantastic. You would not know that was Colin Farrell. All the performances were great. This movie is also visually stunning. Probably the best looking Batman movie in my opinion. The way the cinematography was, I thought was great. And Matt Reeves' direction, the way he directed the action scenes, the car chase in this, I thought it was all fantastic. From a technical level, this movie may be perfect. And from pretty much every level, I just love this movie. The story, I thought it was great. It's suspenseful, it's thrilling, it's mature, like I said. I love it. The action's great. I love Batman in this. I only have one issue with this movie, and for me, it's that it's a little too long. It's around 2 hours, 55 minutes or so. I think if it was a little bit shorter, it could have moved a little bit faster. But that's really my one issue with this movie. It's just a bit too long. Other than that, this movie was fantastic. Again, from a technical level, it's great. I haven't mentioned the score yet. The score, the soundtrack in this was fantastic as well. Perfect soundtrack in my opinion for Batman, for this movie. This movie is fantastic. One of my favorites of 2022, and easily the strongest superhero comic book movie that I saw of 2022. For me, I'm going to give The Batman a 92%. So those are my thoughts on The Batman. If you guys have seen this movie, let me know what you thought about it. As well, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And be sure to stay tuned for some more reviews coming very soon. And until my next video, take care everybody.